In this slidecast, we're going to look at engineering projects in a little bit more detail. So let's review what is a project again. So remember that PMBOK statement was a temporary endeavour undertaken to create a unique product or service. Now PMBOK is the product body of knowledge. It is a project management guide. It gives you a system to manage projects. We'll look at that later on in the course. But let's go back to that definition. So temporary means there's a definite beginning and end. Unique hasn't been done before. No one's ever built that road in that position at that time before, for example. Product is a physical object, so a road is a product. A building is a product. Projects can also be used to produce services. So a service might be that you've got a new insurance product, or you've got a new computer system. In engineering, most of the time we're dealing with products, so we don't produce services all that much in civil engineering. So let's look at the stages that a project goes through in an engineering project. Now engineering projects vary quite a lot. This is just a simplified version of it. It's not cast in stone. Some projects will have the inception of the first few stages all combined into one. Some stages will have the design, the tendering and construction all combined into one. So this is just a indication of what an engineering project is, and it is the way that most engineering projects or many engineering projects work. So they start off with inception right at the top there. So inception. This is where the client, now that's the client there, that guy with the glasses, where the client identifies a need or an opportunity, something he needs done. It might be that it's a council and they say we need a new road from point A to point B, or we need a new pipeline. Or it could be an opportunity. It could be a developer, a businessman sort of looks at buys a lot and says, I'd like to build a building here. If I built an office building here, I could rent it out and make lots of money. So there's an opportunity for him to make some money. So those are the two drivers, needs and opportunities. He might hire a technical advisor, like an engineer, and say, you know, what can I build here? Can I build a high-rise building? What are my options? And at this point in time, it's a very there's not much going on, so you're not going into much detail. It might just be a conversation. The next stage is feasibility. So you might think, yeah, this is a project that I'd really like to move on. So then he decides to go to feasibility. So it's still the client, and the feasibility study is he's asking himself, can I achieve my objectives? Do I want to proceed with this project? And this is when an engineer would usually first be involved. So he'll go to the engineer and he'll say, this is what I'd like to do, can I do it? Or he might go to the engineer and say, what can I do with this lot, for example? Or if it's council, it's what are our options for providing a new road here? And so the engineer usually, or a architect or whatever, goes away and looks at it. They look at the council planning, you know, are you allowed to build in this particular area? They look at the land, they look at the topography, they look at the geology, all those sort of things, and then they come back and say, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. And based on that, the client decides, do I want to proceed or not? Do I want to go ahead and spend some serious money, because the next stages involve a lot of money? Do I want to proceed or not? If he decides to proceed, then we go on to this stage. If he decides not to, the project finishes right here. That's it, end of project. But if he does decide to go ahead, then we go on to design. And this is when the engineer, there's the engineer or the consulting engineer in this case, decides to do the design. And it's not something that happens immediately. It's not like you just go ahead and start drawing everything up. You go through several stages, and so you go through a concept where you say, you know, do you want this type of building, or do you want this type of building, or this type of building? And then you'll go through a stage where the client will say, oh, I want that one, and then you develop that design further to the developed design. So it's an iterative process. Once you've decided on what design you're going to do. You produce tender documents, and the tender documents are a complete record of this is what we want built. And you need to do that because the next stage is finding someone to build it. So someone can't tell you how much it's going to cost to build something if you don't tell them what you want them to build. So that's what the tendering stage is all about. So these guys are all contractors, all construction firms who say, yep, we want to do the work, and so they normally go through a tendering process where the client and the consultant work together to find out which one of these guys is going to work best for them, who's going to do it the right job for the right price in the right time period. So once you've picked one of them, in this case this guy's the winner, you hire him, you make a contract with him, and then you go into construction. This is where they actually build the building in this case. So we're looking at a building in this one. And then right at the end, the contractor, this guy here, says, yes, I have finished the work, and then it's commissioned, so it's brought into function. So the electricity's turned on, the water's turned on, it's all tested, and then it's all handed over to the client. So the client says, yep, that's it, thank you very much, pays the contractor, and that's the end of the story. So those are the typical project stages. Now a project is, once again we've got the definition of projects, but a project is not normally just one project. An engineering project is normally a whole lot of little sub-projects. So a sub-project is a project that is part of a larger project. So in this case there's our inception, feasibility, design, tendering, construction and commissioning. And you can see within these there are little projects, little sub-projects. So the client decides that he wants to look at the feasibility of the project. So there's his project there shown in orange, his little sub-project is part of this big project. So we've got a little client sub-project. Then he hires the consultant who has his own little project, little sub-project. And the client might want to hire another company to be doing the geotech investigation. So they will have a little sub-project as well within the within the consultant's sub-project, which is again nestled within the client's bigger feasibility project. So these are technically sub projects, but we just call it a sub project. Likewise, when we get into the design, the client's got a big sub project here. Within that there's the preliminary design sub project carried out by the consultant. Within that there might be sub consultant's work, which is other little sub projects. Then we get into the tendering, and then we get down to commissioning here. Once again we've got a little sub-project for the client. The construction monitoring would be the consultant's little sub-project for this, and then this green one here is the contractor's sub-project. And the contractor might hire other contractors to do specific work. So they might hire someone to do the roading, for example, and so they've got a little sub-project there as well. So when you think about an engineering project, you really need to think about a whole lot of little sub-projects that are all connected together with the aim of producing this, the end, the output, the deliverable, the thing that is produced at the end of the project. So the other word we've got here is deliverable. So that concludes this slidecast.